On this episode, we speak about following our life's path. One of the most rewarding truths is in knowing that you're exactly where you're meant to be. Discovering your tailor-made journey is worth the twists, turns, and adventure. The universe is really conspiring with you. Tune in as we learn how to find, follow, and fulfill our life's path right here on LifeClub.
I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to LifeClub with me, Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub with me, Tashima Jones. I'm super excited as always to have you tuning in. Today we are speaking about following your path. So at a certain point in my life, and in all of our lives, we are pushed out of the nest. And with being pushed out, we are expected to spread our wings and fly. And some of us don't automatically. But we tend to find ourselves fluttering around to what seems like nowhere. Today's show is focused on how to find, follow, and fulfill your life's path. So I have to give some context to this conversation. I feel like anything that I do speak about is always just birthed from my personal experience. And I had a really, really tumultuous upbringing, both inside of the home and outside of the home. I was no stranger to witnessing drug abuse, domestic violence, and I experienced bullying, lack, and many other traumas that really came from just the community I once lived in. At the age of 14, my mom passed away, and it was around this time a lot of people in my family passed away. So what I did was I just buried my head in my books. It was a way for me to cope and to avoid fears, hurt, and basically just confusion at that young age, not really understanding what this thing called life was really all about. So I continued throughout life with, a low self-esteem, and I looked for self-worth and self-value in education, relationships, friendships, money, and material possessions. And it wasn't until I hit adulthood, after I actually had my son, where the desire to see something different kind of was so strong that I was willing to take that leap of faith and go find it. It's a period of my life that I call spiritual rehab. That is totally copywritten. So just, that's mine all day, every day. And it was at that point that my path became clear. And I wanted to share what I've learned on my personal journey so that it can hopefully add to yours and help you out in whatever chapter you are currently in your life story. So one of the major things that I found was so vital into discovering that path was basically asking for change. Simply, prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it, asking, who I call the life force, for change, asking for something different, for something real, for something other than what it is that you are experiencing. And one of the key points in asking is really hoping and being open to receiving the truth and the answer, because oftentimes we pray for the answer that we want versus the answer and the truth of the question that we are asking. So it is so vital for us to ask for change. And usually this comes with the brick, like Auntie Oprah. I always go back to her. And she talks about how life will send you pebbles, and then those pebbles get bigger and bigger until eventually they're a brick. And unfortunately, a lot of us learn the hard way, if you will. We wake up when it's a brick and not the pebble. So being open to those pebbles in your life. Once you ask, sit in stillness, sitting in a state of calm, in a state of ease, expecting the answer to arrive, truly seeking the answer, truly seeking the truth about who you are and what you have been called to do. Now, this idea of change, I talked about it in our 1 minute of meditation. And I believe I talked about it in our 1 minute of meditation. I think I did. If I didn't, yes, I did. So I talked about change basically being like a barter system. In a barter system, you have a good or a service, you meet in a specific place, aka the market, and you give that good or service to someone in exchange for something of equal or greater value. So when we think about our lives and we think about the change that we seek and experiencing something new and something different, you have to be willing to give up what it is that you currently have in exchange for something that is better. I'm not going to even say of equal value, because when you deal with the life force, it's always going to be better than what you have. Even if it's good, it's just going to be better. So at that place of asking, be open to receive the truth, whatever that truth may be. And in our hearts, I truly believe that we all know the truth, especially about ourselves. Like, you're a hot mess. It's okay. But we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge where we are and the brokenness that we may be experiencing, or even the desire to just go up another level. There are happy people in the world. I'd like to say I'm one of them. There are happy people in the world. And again, things can always be better. So if you find yourself in a slump, or you find yourself just at this, this average or the same level that you've been experiencing for years, or a little too longer than what you would desire, either way, exchanging the things that you have in this moment of life for something that is better. And that, to me, is surrender. I feel like people tell you to surrender and let go and let God, but they don't necessarily tell you how. And in order for you to grab onto something new, you have to let go of what's in your hand. So the way to surrender is to simply receive what it is that you are in the process of getting. It's simple, and it just became really clear to me today. I'm not going to front like I knew that, because I've been asking myself, well, how do I let go? How do I surrender? But that, to me, is the perfect picture, the perfect example of what surrender is, what it looks like, and how to do it. Is just saying, all right, I have this mediocre life, or I have this relationship that's kind of iffy, or I have this dream and this desire that's not really going anywhere. The way to surrender it is to take in exchange that thing that is being given to you. And I'm going to be honest, again, going back to prayer, going back to meditation, you have to sit still long enough to see what that thing that you're supposed to receive is. You got to know what it is. So the only way for you to find out what that thing is for you to listen. That's the other part of conversation and communication. It's listening. I am recovering from being a bad listener. Like, I like to talk. So I do that in my prayer, my meditation life too. I'm not a different person than what you hear here than what I am at home. So just being willing to listen and sit still. And again, that goes back to humility. Humility is saying, I don't know everything, and I'm willing to learn how. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to discover. I'm willing to be the student in this phase of my life, because I truly believe we're all masters in some areas of our lives, and the other areas we're students, and you have to be willing to admit that to yourself so that you can gain more. It's always this flow of learning and teaching, mastering, and being a student. And that's okay because you didn't come out the womb knowing everything. It took some time for you to learn how to eat, took some time for you to learn how to speak, took some time for you to walk. And as you get older, the same is true. Like wisdom and enlightenment is truly infinite. So if you feel like you're at this place where you know everything, that means you know nothing at all. But we're going to move forward. Yes, asking. So part of asking is being transparent with yourself. It's receiving the answer, and it's surrendering to the force that is higher than you in exchange for what it is that life is trying to get to you. It's so important for us to understand that even in like study of human behavior, psychologists cannot ignore the invisible, aka mental processes that are causing a behavior. There are literally tests and experiments in history of people who study human beings. And they too recognize that you can't ignore the invisible realm. You can't ignore the things that that you can't see on the outside, because there's something on the inside of the person that's causing them to behave in a certain way. And that behavior is leading to another effect, which is the quality of your life. I always have to say that at some point in our lives, we are living out somebody else's reality. So, some people are like, well, I was 5 years old when this happened. I was 10. You didn't have any control over those things. So we have to acknowledge that truth. But once we get to an age or a state of awareness and consciousness, to take that responsibility of not necessarily creating your life, but discovering what your life already is, and then co-creating with that force of life. At some point, you have to, there's scripture that talks about, putting away childish things. You have to, at one point in your life, take responsibility, not necessarily for what has happened or what is, but how you plan to move forward. So that is so very important. Again, we're going to start at the ask. Ask for understanding of life. Ask for purpose. Ask for the direction in which you should go in. Be ready to receive that answer. Be transparent with yourself. Surrender, aka just exchange what you have for what is waiting for you. And you move on from there. So again, I go back to the kitchen table, asking who am I, what am I, and why am I here? And that truly opened up this door for me, this road for me that I always believe I was living this parallel life to, meaning there's these two journeys, these two roads that are lined up against each other, but each one has different signposts. Each one has different events that you're going to experience. And it's so important for you to be on the road that you're supposed to be on the path that you're supposed to be on. So starting with the ask, and then once you discover the yes or discover the why, you then continue to follow it. You continue to walk. Now, this oftentimes is the hardest thing to ever do, and that is to receive direction, to start walking on it. And then when you start getting hit with eggs and snowballs and you start falling and you start crying and you like, oh my goodness, why is all this happening to me? I thought I was going on the right path. I thought this was what I was supposed to be doing. And now that I'm on this road, it does not feel good. Keep walking. It sounds a little, more simple than what it is, but you just have to keep walking. When you receive direction, continue to follow it. I recently heard somebody speaking about this idea of time. And, we are spiritual beings, eternal beings, infinite beings, but we are in this temporal existence of humanity. You can only take 24 hours at a time. You can't take infinity. Like, you can't take eternity all in at once. You will explode. Like, it just won't work. So what happens on that journey is you get piece by piece, is what I like to call the breadcrumbs. You get step 1, and then you get step 2. And as you're moving on step 2, you see step 3. The roadmap is not going to be downloaded for you all at once. It just isn't. And I'm not really sure. I mean, besides this whole idea of not being able to take it all in at once, I don't really know why that's part of the plan, but I truly believe that it is. And the reality of it is that I always go back to my birthday. I did not ask to be born on April 5th, 1983 at 10:25 a.m. I don't remember, having that on my to-do list. So the same way that I came into the earth, not knowing, is the same way that I'm going to move through life. Yes, you have direction. Yes, you are prompted to do certain things. Yes, you are prompted to go certain places and to take certain jobs and to leave certain jobs and to pick up certain classes and to drop certain classes. Yes, you do have direction, but more importantly, what we always have to depend and rely on is what people call AKA faith. Again, there's so much that we know and there's so much that we don't know. The weather can't even get it right nowadays. I'm just saying. The weathermen, they tell you one thing and then it's something else outside. So our predictions can be a little off as human beings. So again, once you go into that state of meditation, once you go into that state of prayer and you ask the questions, even the whys of what happened when you were 7, even the why, you ask all of those questions, you lay everything out on the table, because to me, that's a form of release and that's a form of healing, is getting out the muck and the mirror that is on the inside of you from things that have occurred in your life. It is fair to do that. It is okay to do that. That is necessary, because if you do not, again, release a thing, you cannot receive what is waiting for you. So that's the ask. And then you just keep walking and following the signposts. A lot of people say follow your heart. And that's kind of tricky, because sometimes your heart is not in the right posture to really be followed. So for me and the experiences that I've had, once I went into meditation and once I asked the questions and became okay with sitting and waiting for the answers, there are moments where I saw something that I was like, all right, I know this is right, and I would follow it. There are other times when I just have this sense of peace that I don't even understand why I feel okay with this, but in my heart, in my mind, I just feel like it's the right thing to do and it's the right place that I'm supposed to be in. I truly believe that we all have our own language with the life force. And this whole concept of the universe conspiring with you, I truly believe it's really, really true. First, we always got to go back to the science of it. We are made up of the things in the earth. So we are technically, in my opinion, connected to the earth. We are connected to the elements of this wonderful planet that we live on, and spiritually we're all connected to each other, and that's just like a whole nother conversation. But the truth of the matter is that the universe really does speak to you, and I'm speaking about, I truly believe there's a creator and then there's a universe. I don't mix those two, but for the sake of this conversation, the universe, earth, really speaks to you. And I can only say that because I've experienced it in my own life. So, again, you ask the question, you follow the answer, and then you keep walking, and then you follow the signpost. People speak about this word of coincidence. And, people say, like in Hebrew, there's no such thing as coincidence. And people call it serendipity. I actually like that movie. But what I have realized is that this whole idea of, right place, right time, this was a coincidence, is simply just being in harmony with your life's path. It's being in alignment. It is experiencing the life that you were supposed to experience. It's understanding that there are certain things that are simply lines up for you along this journey. And when you come in contact with those things, and then they start happening over and over, like labor pains, it's like, okay, there's something to this. And that's why continuing to follow, continuing to walk in that path is so important. I always say just give it a try, because you can't really download your experiences into somebody else to make them see what you see and to feel what you feel and to experience what you experience. But when that person has their own experience with life as a partner, they too will be enlightened and see what it is that you are seeing. I'm going to just take a deep breath. So once again, if you're just tuning in, this is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. We are speaking about finding, following, and fulfilling your life's path. One of the major things, one of the major aha moments that I had was, how did I live life before like encountering enlightenment and wisdom? It was like just this moment of like, again, revelation, when your mind finally catches up with your spirit. And I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like almost like my life prior to this moment flashed before my eyes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I live in this existence without knowing myself, without knowing who I was and what I was called to be and what I was called to share with the world? It was almost as if it was definitely a moment of gratitude, but it was a moment of enlightenment. It was a moment of waking up. And too many of us are living our lives asleep, day in and day out, going to jobs that we don't want to be at, or not even knowing what our purpose is on that job that we think we really don't like, when perhaps there's a reason you're there. When we're in relationships that, even if they're good, it just don't seem right, or just really crappy relationships. Or we are waking up every day, going to sleep every night, not really feeling this sense of joy and this sense of fulfillment. And again, it's not in material things. It's not in the relationships that we have. It's not in the education that you have. Oftentimes people who seemingly have everything feel like they have nothing. And I truly believe it's because of this idea of your life's path, of the road that you're supposed to be traveling on. And it's not to say that that road doesn't have bumps and cracks in the ground and some dirt roads and some roads that you don't even know where you are, but it is to say that you will have peace and fulfillment while you are on that path. And yes, there are some goodies included. So we went over in the first half of the hour asking, who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Once we receive that answer, we keep walking. And I truly believe that following the signposts will help you keep walking when you feel like you just want to go backwards or just lay across the road and cry and kick and scream. And then we have this place of acceptance. So we have this place of acceptance. It is so helpful for you to look at the opposite of a word to really discover what that word means. For example, when we speak about this idea of surrender, it's like, well, how do I do that? Well, how do I let go? Well, how do I forgive? How do I just let this thing be? And again, in order to surrender something, it's in exchange for receiving something. So the moment you receive something new is the moment you're letting go of something old. Some of us are standing there in the middle of our rooms, holding on to the hurt instead of receiving the love that's there in the same room with them. Some of us are holding on to the past, whether good or bad. Some people get trapped. Some people get trapped in the 80s. Some people get trapped in the 90s. Some people get trapped in the good times, the good old days. Every day is a good day. And again, you have to be willing to surrender what it is that you are holding on to in exchange for something new, in exchange for something that is good, in exchange for something that is better, a level up than where you are. And accepting something, in accepting something and accepting the truth, you have to figure out what is it that you are resisting. If you find it hard to accept the truth, then you're resisting change. Resistance is stopping something from happening. You know, this whole idea of you being your worst enemy or you holding yourself back, like you're standing in the way of your own progress. Like that's what resistance is. I get it. I have moved around long enough, and I'm not about to get emotional, but I feel like I am, and I will cry if I have to. Yes, I will. But I have moved around long enough to understand this idea of letting things go. And you don't want to get to a point where you are forced to let something go. Because I'm at this phase in my life now where I'm looking for the pebble. Like, where is the pebble so I could get it right now? Because I don't want the brick. And your life becomes a much smoother process when you do that. Accepting something is this act of not resisting it. To accept the truth, you have to stop resisting the truth. And to stop resisting the truth, you have to be transparent and honest with yourself. So when we find the answer, even if it's the answer that we don't want, because that happens a lot, but I find that the key in receiving the answers that you don't want, they lead you to the things that you do want. One of my favorite examples, I'm not going to give a 5-year-old a keys to the Bentley. We're not doing that because they can't drive. They just learning how to, well, a few of them just learn how to read. They learn how to tie their shoe. If you can't tie your shoe, why would I give you a Bentley? Why would I give you this like extravagant luxury car? You don't have the capacity to hold that. So when we receive the answers that we don't necessarily want, we have to look at it as if this is not what I want, but this is what I need at this moment in my life. And not only that, what I need will lead me to what I want. So I want to join together this whole idea of surrender with acceptance. You know, you're surrendering something and you're accepting something new. You're accepting truth. You're accepting light. You're accepting something that's going to help and heal you. And when you don't sit in prayer meditation, it's like going to the doctor and the doctor's asking you what's wrong. And you're like, oh, I'm good. It's like, okay, see you next year. I can't help you. So you have to be open. You have to be transparent. You have to be honest to receive the healing that you seek. You have to use your words. You have to use even your tears at time. You have to. I remember one day just crying. Like I wasn't even saying anything. I was just crying. And I feel like those tears were received as a prayer. So in whatever way you find yourself asking the question of who am I, what am I supposed to do, and where am I supposed to go and be at this moment? However that comes out, release that and let it come out, and then accept the answer. Stop resisting change. Stop resisting truth. And oftentimes you just have to be tired of living the lie. And sometimes we tell ourselves lies so long that we start believing it, and we got to stop. That's not healthy. That's not a good thing. So let us be true with ourselves. Let us be true with the life force, and let us be true to life itself. Let us just be real with ourselves, real with our hurt, real with our pain. And I never can forget, be real with your hopes and your dreams too. A lot of times we don't even allow ourselves to dream. We don't even allow ourselves to write down a goal. We don't even get to that point where we believe it enough to manifest it, even if it's on a verbal scale or written scale. Stop resisting the change that you seek. Accept the truth. Accept the answer. And you know things are the truth when they ruffle your feathers, yes, but when it also gives you a sense of peace. And when you can agree with it in honesty, it's like, yeah, this is really true about me. Like, yeah, I can't even argue with that. Again, arguing is a form of resistance. Ignoring is a form of resistance. Stop resisting the truth and accept it for what it is. I want to go back to this point of alignment. It's this harmony. It's this space of just being in this flow of life. Again, understand, like the ocean, there's a whole bunch of water, but underneath the surface, there's a lot of rocks and sea creatures. And if you've ever watched anything on Discovery Channel, you know, like I know how amazing water creatures are. I've seen things that I've never seen, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I say all of that to say that flow doesn't necessarily mean straight. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect. And I think sometimes when we find ourselves in situations that are hard to bear and hard to handle, seemingly hard to handle, we think that we did something wrong, or we think that we're out of alignment, or we think that we made the wrong turn. No, going back to my little baby, a mother or father is not going to hold their baby for life. You're going to put that baby on the floor and allow him to crawl until he starts walking, and then he'll start running. But if you keep trying to cradle the baby and trying to hold the baby and don't want them to fall or trip, they're never going to learn how to walk. And the same is true for yourself. You're going to feel little jabs here and there, but when you recognize and when you walk that path long enough and you see that everything is working for your good, you start to rest a little bit more, and you start to become less uneasy, and you start to understand that while this is this moment of hardship, whatever hardship you may be experiencing, you start to recognize that it's helping you and that it's healing you. One of my hardships, which I think all of us have faced, is identity. It's like, all right, Tashima, like, who are you? Like, I always say I never changed who I was in front of people, but I would dim my light. And it's going to get to a point where you're going to get frustrated with yourself and say, girl, you was fronting, you was lying. You was not being real with yourself, and you got to go home with yourself. Even if nobody knows, that's one of the areas that was an area of frustration to me. But I knew that every time I stepped up to the mic, no pun intended. Yes, there was a pun intended. I think I'm using that right. But every time I would step out a little bit more with being my true self, the easier it became. It wasn't the easiest thing, but the more I did it, the more comfortable I became. The same is true for finances. You're like, oh my goodness, I got to feed my baby. I got to eat too every now and then. I got to pay bills. But it's like, for me, money was a god. Money was the thing that was supposed to make me happy. Money was the thing that was supposed to make me feel good about myself. So I am so grateful for life restricting finances for me to truly see who I really am and who I really can become and what truly brings life. Oftentimes things are being withheld from you, not because life is just mean or because you took the wrong path, but it's to show you your true self and your true value and who honestly is that true force, that true higher power, that true spirit that we all have to get connected to. I always say it's not about religion, it's about relationship. And you have to recognize, just like the psychologists recognize, that you cannot omit the invisible, aka mental and spiritual processes that are causing activity in the natural world that we live in. So when you take an account of your life, and when you take an account of where you currently find yourself, be real with yourself and look at the things that are being withheld from you, and then ask the why. And oftentimes the why will come so easily. Well, why don't I have this thing? Because if you have this thing, you would mismanage it. You would misuse it. You would abuse it. You would let it go to your head. You will start acting real funny towards other people that have been there for you for all these hard times. You have to be honest with yourself. So accepting that truth, asking those questions, and getting an alignment. And remember, alignment is not always a smooth process. But what I have experienced is that it is a process that is worth the jabs that we get along the way, because it's just growing pains. It's just growing pains. And once you get through one, it's like, all right, I see how this happened. Let me just keep going, to the point where it's like you're not so scared to run away from a fight anymore, because on the other side of that fight is that blessing, is that manifestation of the thing that you really want. It's that victory. What I want to say right here, right now, what I feel like I strongly have to say is you have to finish the chapter. Finish the scene of the movie, finish the paragraph, finish the essay, finish the article, finish, because what happens is that two things may happen. It gets really hard and you want to leave and you don't want to finish, or it gets to the point where you want to rush it. It's like, all right, I'm going to stick in there, but I'm going to try to make this the fastest process I've ever made it in my entire life. And the sad part about that is that you miss the gems and the jewels along the way. You miss the things that are going to make you and build you and create that person that you're supposed to be. You miss the character builds and processes of life. You miss, it's kind of like, I've never heard of it, but I don't think anybody has ever gotten skipped from like kindergarten to college. Anything is possible for those who believe. But I never saw that happening. And so many of us want to get skipped to the next level. Yes, there may be some breaks in time where it's like, you know what, I'm going to give you a pass. I'm going to promote you in 6 months. But other times it might take 6 years. My pepper took 2 years to grow. And I planted that a while ago. I just got it. If anybody knows about pepper, you know what I'm talking about. So finish the task. You don't want to go to a movie where they fast forward through all of the scenes, because what makes the movie is the middle part. So finish every scene, finish every chapter, and cry for real, like snot nose cry through it. Like get all of those emotions out so that when you do go through it, number one, you're not looking back. Number two, you're not feeling like you missed anything. And number three, you are built up in that specific area of hardship or whatever it is that you're going through. Like you know that you have overcome this, that you will be protected and provided in this area moving forward, because that is what I truly believe faith is. Yes, it's the evidence of things unseen. And at the same time, it is also building you for the next task at hand. And a lot of times we sit there, we cry, we pray, we get our blessing, and then we forget the process, and then we find ourselves right back in that same space, doubting and in confusion, trying to figure it out. No, look at every scene of that chapter. Look at every line by line. Soak it in. Be a part of that process, because you are the one who's being built. There's one video that I want to leave you with, and Will Smith is talking to Caleb, Jada's brother, and Caleb comes to Will Smith and is like, yo, I want to make movies, I want to write. So then Will Smith is like, okay, if you trust me for this amount of time, I'll get you to where you want to be. So Will had this man read like 10 books. He had him working out. He had him change his diet. He had him do all these random things that had nothing to do with film and movies. And one of the things that Will said that literally brought me to tears was, we're not building a career. We're building a Caleb. Just breathe on that. And in that same moment, I heard the life force saying, I'm not building a career. I'm building a Tashima. I'm about to cry. Let me hold it in, because I got a few more minutes with y'all. I don't want to wrap it up crying. But in everything that we are seeking and everything that we're trying to create and everything that we're trying to build, and we're trying to hustle and flow our ways through life, and we want this relationship, and we want this house, and we want this money, we want this paper, and we want to do this and do that. At the end of the day, the life force is more concerned with building you. I did a good job holding back them tears. So I am just so grateful to have experienced this moment with you guys. And I hope the same is true for you. This has been another installment of Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. And we've been talking about finding, following, and fulfilling your life's path. I hope and believe that this has touched you as much as it has touched me, sharing with you and also experiencing it in my real life. Oh, I'm so happy. I always leave this room charged and amped because I'm just so happy spending time with you guys. Okay, so I look forward to meeting you guys again. I'm just like really like, if you guys heard the GPS, heard you, that was like so perfect. Following the path. Ow. It's okay. Alrighty. So once again, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been Life Club with me, Tashima Jones, on WHCR 90.3 FM, New York, the voice of Harlem. You can also tune in as a podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YV Radio, Spotify, and of course, my app, TJM TV. You can find me at TashimaJones.com. All of my social media and contact information can be found there. Until next time, remember your greatness. Talk soon.
I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.